One.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And we're going to be talking about what's taking place in China and what we know and what we can learn from it. We titled the episode Tiananmen Square 2.0. And I'm especially happy about the guest we have because I'm generally not a fan of hyperbole or of comparing, one level of oppression with another when the comparison is not necessarily appropriate. So we're going to get into, is today's China the China in which that famous shot of the man and the tank took place or not? We'll get into a lot today, and we've got my usual co-host. You know him. He's he may someday play Mao Zedong himself. It's actor Mark Pellegrino. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we've got the special guest I've been hinting at. She survived Mao's regime in China for 26 years. She's an independent educator, writer, translator, event organizer. The list goes on. From Acton Institute in Asia and Pacific countries, it's Li Zhao.
Yes. Hi. I'm made in China.
Made in China. Well,
yes.
unlike a lot of Americans these days, Mark and I are we like that. Well, okay. So what's going on in China? Is that a good question to start with?
Yes. And no, because it's too much to describe what's going on in China, because it's just crazy and chaotic and very, very sad, if I have to use one word, because 1.4 billion people it's like living worse than in a concentration camp. Yesterday, I was on Twitter, and by the way, Chinese people still able to get on Twitter via VPN. So Twitter is one of the platform. It's very active, and I get my most up to date, up to the minutes situation from Twitter, and now. It's not just the words, most of the time just videos. So am I still there? Okay. Mm-hmm. The video tells everything. So it's not a fake news or whatever. So it's very, very alarming to see that. Yesterday I saw on Twitter, they said, well, we are worse than the concentration camp. At least concentration camp, if there's a fire, probably they let us leave our room and to run out, but not in China. And they still have food, even though it's very terrible food and not enough, but they still have food. We have no food, not everybody, but a lot of places. So they even use that to compare what the situation is in China. And I cannot compare with the Cultural Revolution because I lived through Cultural Revolution. For the political side of, if we talk about lack of freedom, and it's the same. In some cases, it's worse than Cultural Revolution. But Cultural Revolution was everybody on the street. Here, nobody allowed to be on the street.
So the lockdowns are brutal. Is that kind of what you mean when you say it's possibly worse than even a concentration camp?
Yeah, it is brutal. It is really horrifying. People are during the Cultural Revolution, a lot of people committed suicide, jump off the building every single day. And because they didn't understand, they feel wrongly accused. And now a lot of people jump off their building because they couldn't take it anymore. Or they're desperate to take their sick child to the doctor. They couldn't get out of their doors. So they risk their life to get down from a rope from the 20-some floors. Of course, they're not trained to do things like that. They dropped both mom and child dead falling off the 20-some floors. It happens every day also.
That sounds absolutely unbearable. And by the way, sorry if I called you by the wrong name. I've got a conflict between what Zoom is showing me and the description of the episode. But Li Schoolland is well versed about China and its history. Is it that the Chinese government just doesn't want COVID to spread at all, so they're hoping they can contain this?
Nothing to do with COVID. Nothing to do with COVID. It's their way to show people who's in control. Actually, not in control, who's controlling. You know, I'm a Christian. I say God is in control. Satan controls. In China, they just want to control you and want you to know they can control you. So it's very, very political. They didn't lock down to this kind of degree at the very beginning when this virus came out of Wuhan. And now after 3 years, they started. And they politically, strategically chose Shanghai. Shanghai is the richest city in China, probably one of the richest cities in the world. And people who are very innovative, and after they have a lot of wealth, they are more into protecting their wealth and think for themselves. So Xi Jinping chose Shanghai as the first city to total lockdown. And just to show these people who were educated, rich entrepreneurs, if I want you to behave like a slave, I can do it in 1 day. That's what they are showing off. And before their political meeting. So brought people in Shanghai, everybody down to their knees just to get a carriage. And that's why recently Shanghai people, not the students for the first time, just regular citizens went out to the street. And then they shouted down with Xi Jinping and down with Communist Party. That's actually demonstration happened all over China, mostly on campuses. But in Shanghai was by the citizen of the city, and Shanghai was the only place they shouted down with Xi Jinping. But of course, all those people are in prison right now. Other places, they also hold it the A4 white paper, but most of them also shouting, we're not against Xi Jinping, we're not against the Communist Party, we love them, we just don't want to be locked down anymore. So it's very diverse demonstration. One main goal was very clear is people are tired of being locked down to this kind of, in this kind of degree, but the attitude towards Xi Jinping and Communist Party is totally different. So the Communist Party didn't react right away. Xi Jinping didn't react right away. It took about more than a day to think about it. Now he realized people were mostly against lockdown, so he suddenly several places, cities or train station or restaurants to stop being locked down, and there is not even a transition period. Just say, okay, no more lockdown, no more COVID test, do whatever. People couldn't believe, and now they were just so confused. But when for example, thousands of people at the very busy train station waiting in line to do the COVID test and to scan their code, they call yellow or green code, whatever, to pass, and suddenly they just say, okay, no need, everybody can do whatever. So people start running all over the places and celebrating. So that strategy is kind of very, to me, it's very mean. And people immediately forgot how they got this. They forgot the demonstration, the people who are in prison made this happen. They were just overjoyed and thanked the government, thank Xi Jinping. They were just so thankful. And so that's sad for us who are dissidents. Our goal is to down with the Communist Party and down with Xi Jinping. And so today the situation was a lot of areas people are overjoyed, but we know they can 1 minute say no more lockdown, no more screening testing required. Tomorrow they can change everything just like flipping their hand. That easy. Say okay, lockdown again, because they demonstrate what they can do, and but people in China, they don't realize that, but also they're used to it. They just say, okay, we just wait until next whatever order. They're just following orders. They're so happy to following orders. That's the sad part.
And the unpredictability is what drives people mad, because you don't know if you're breaking the law by following one order that's going to change at a moment's notice, or you can't predict what tomorrow is going to look like. So how can you plan for the future, right? How can you predict the effect of your actions if you don't know if the lockdown will be in effect or not the following day, or let alone a week or a month? And so the Chinese they're used to taking orders. So China has an interesting history. I have a general idea. At one point, it was just brutally totalitarian and a communist country. Over the last several decades, I guess we would say they liberalized, allowed free trade and some economic rights, and some even a little bit more socially libertine in a certain respect. But certainly economically, China liberalized in certain areas, and we see the consequence. We see the tall buildings and economic activity. And then recently, my understanding is China has been returning to authoritarianism. It never really left, but it's been increasing its authoritarianism with the appointment of Xi Jinping as the lifelong ruler. Things like that have been taking place. The taking of Hong Kong, things like that have been showing that the Chinese government, they want to retain authority more than they care about economic growth. Do I have a basically correct understanding?
Yes. Two keywords I heard you say. Number one is you say they don't know if they're breaking the law or whatever. That's not very accurate, because China doesn't have a rule of law. So there's no law, especially pandemic. It is just Xi Jinping said, I want zero COVID. And it down to the basic level, nobody knew what this mean, but everybody who has a white coat or a red armband immediately grab the power and start to do whatever they think if please the top, please Xi Jinping. Everybody, their goal, who has little power, their objective is to please the above. And they don't care about human life. They just don't care. There's one video I watched it many times in Shanghai. They're starting to grab people from the demonstration site, and they grab a girl and ask her to give the police her cell phone. She said, no, you have no right to ask me for my cell phone. Give me your cell phone. She said, no. And the young man police start to beat the girl. We can hear the screaming, and several men jump on that young girl and beat her until she stopped making noise. there's no law. And they they use a very, very inhumane way to torture people and beat them up before even taking them to the police station. So that's what they're doing. And about China's economic development, yeah, I have a lot to say about that, but today I'm not going to elaborate on that. It's true. When you go to China, you see high rises, beautiful streets, expensive shops. Yes, but they are not true free market. It's state capitalism. And now it's turning to more of a controlled economy, not exactly planned economy, but controlled economy. But the important sectors, they all still planned, but other sectors was controlled. China does care of its economy. It doesn't care about people's life. So Chinese economy right now is in a very, very bad stage. National debt is 274% of GDP. And poverty level, more than 64% of Chinese live under less than $500 a month. More than 64%. And in China, the poverty level is $1 a day. Not even half of what World Bank's standard. And people are not rich, Chinese people. The government is very, very rich. The strategy right now for the Chinese government is to nationalize big businesses. We already see Alibaba, Jack Ma out, gave his business to Chinese government. There's plenty of these kind of huge businesses. The government is gradually taking over. First, they say joint venture. Firstly, joint venture. That happened in 1952, 51, 52, when communists first took over. Our family had a lot of businesses. My ancestors were the top 1%. Firstly, they forced you to give shares to the government, more than 50%. Then after that, they just took over, nationalized everything. So we see that happening right now. That's how the Chinese government that is not worried about not having enough money to do their One Belt, One Road initiative to buy off all these small countries for the vote in the United Nations, and also to sustain themselves. But people are starting to receive ration coupons now for food, for necessities. And I heard one lady, her recording, she said, if she's lucky, she and her daughter can have one meal a day, sometimes 1 meal in 2 days, living in Shanghai, in the middle of Shanghai, and not able to leave their apartment. She used to have a business, printing business for advertisement. It's all gone. Everything's gone. So that's Xi Jinping is not worried because he can just forcefully take over other businesses and also export. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to ask a question. It seems like Xi's policies are pretty suicidal in the end, but what can we as Americans, or what can people in relatively free countries do about the situation there? How can we? What can we do to end this terror?
Yes, this is one big question. People like me outside of China, we often talk about it. Right now, 90% of Chinese residents they're very active, but they're only active in the Chinese language community. So the non-Chinese speaking people don't know what's going on, don't know how to what to do to help. And but there's several things we can do to help. Number one, we publish those names that's imprisoned by the Communist Party, the political prisoner, conscience prisoners. We publish their names and then get them to be known outside of China. We found out if they are well known, they will be treated a little bit better in prison, less solitary treatment, more food. In Chinese prison, it's like this. You have to provide yourself everything, toothpaste, toothbrush, and basic food and everything. Most political prisoners, their family are not allowed to visit, so to bring them soaps and toothpaste. If they're well known outside of China, and they are treated a little better, and some people could go visit them to give them some money. They have to buy things in prison and bring them some money, and also get less tortured. So that's one thing we want to help with those very big name political prisoners. So just to talk about these people, like Zhang Zhan, we all knew she lost hope in living already. But I've seen on the street and in America, and people wearing her T-shirt and support her, and the Uyghurs situation, and just to talk about it, and also not just watch CNN. CNN doesn't tell anything. One thing very convenient is to go to the Twitter and follow those famous Chinese dissidents and use Google instant translation to see what they're talking about. You know, the firsthand knowledge. Then Americans, especially Americans, we are how do I say? We care about freedom. We know what to do to protect our freedom. And so you will know what to do, how to do it, and to help China. And I knew some engineers, they started to make these programs, software, to give to the Chinese to just bypass the daily requirement of COVID tests. Because the COVID test in China not only was required people to do it every day, sometimes 3 times a day. Sometimes you didn't go anywhere, didn't leave your house for a month, and suddenly you tested positive. How could that be? Because if they want to take you away, you could be positive. It's nothing about pandemic at all. And also they start building these gigantic warehouse-like places. They call it square warehouse. Force thousands of people live there. Each person have a cot, doesn't even have a divider, doesn't even have a facility for hygiene. They still building it, and they invest about 1 billion each. They want to get their investment return, because all these people who invested COVID test, vaccine, and these square warehouses, they're connected to the government. They need to get their money back. So they need to put these people in there. People get to put in there, they have to pay. It's not they force you in there like a prison, then you get fed. No, you have to pay every day. So it's a big money thing. So right now they say they cannot stop because these people are still building it. They still need their return of the investment. But one prediction is, if all the zero pandemic order stopped, they're going to use these places for political prisoners.
So publishing names is one way that we can keep, the struggle of the people over there
right.
in sort of at the front of our minds. What do you think about America and European countries economically decoupling from China, since they are concerned about their economy, but not the people? Once they start paying an economic consequence, do you think that will take the pressure off of people?
Yes, definitely. What I'm saying is, once you get to know what's going on in China from the real source, you start talking about, and Chinese government really care about their faith. They don't want to look bad. They still, actually, it's not just their intention, it's our responsibilities. There's still a lot of people talking about China model, talking about China's success stories, especially in African countries and Asian countries. I've been to all these countries. They still think China has a model. That's very dangerous. That's why we need to let people know there's no China model, and whatever Xi Jinping is doing is for his power, for the evil intention to spread the communist ideology and control and dictatorship throughout the world. Number two, we need to, the business people have to take a stand. What happened in Hong Kong is the international community did nothing. Hong Kong is such an important economic center of the world. Business people, big banks, brand names did nothing. I like to use this comparison. When the United States Black Lives Matters happened, a lot of fashion designers, brand names, they took a stand. And the same companies, they said nothing when 20 million people in Hong Kong peacefully protesting, because it's a big market, right?
Oh, because it's a market.
When the Chinese government ordered them to change their website, cannot say Taiwan, Hong Kong, Shanghai. They have to say Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, China, Shanghai, China. Everybody changed. So business people have a lot to do, like business gigantic banks. If they say we're pulling out of China temporarily, like Visa, what they did with Russia, they did it in Russia. Why can't they do it in Shanghai, in Hong Kong, in China? Those things, yes, I don't know how to lobby them, because their profit margin, and Hollywood is another one. Hollywood is so anybody with the communist, because that's their biggest box office income. And my friend Ürümqi Park, her book is very famous. Her story was just powerful, and Hollywood want to make a movie. They did this, wrote the script and showed her. She said, "You're just ridiculous. You portray Chinese government as such a beautiful, heroic, helpful government, and all my story got twisted. And yeah, otherwise we can't sell it in China." She said, "I'd rather not to make my movie. You cannot do this." That's what is happening. Hollywood and NBA. This basketball player from Turkey, and he put free Tibet on his sneaker, and now he's permanently kicked out of NBA. No team will hire him. He tried. I met him recently. He said, "Okay, I'm going to Europe then." He tried in different teams in Europe, And first they knew his name. They immediately was overjoyed. He's coming. Then they realized what he stands for. Said, free Tibet, free help the Uyghurs. No, we cannot have you. So these are the people are helping, empowering Xi Jinping and the Communist Party. So we got to try our way to get those people, even you don't support freedom, at least you don't support the Communist and party and the Xi Jinping. Say no to them. Just simply say no when they ask you to do this and that. You just say no. That's all you can do. And if all those big businesses and industries say no together, China cannot punish everybody. They don't have the resource and the power to do that. They can punish one person. But Morgan and whatever, these big business companies just say no together. They're not going to lose anything.
Yeah. Exposing the atrocities of these authoritarian countries is very useful. I think in Cuba, the story behind the movie Scarface is that Castro was embarrassed when the media were paying attention to the fact that he wasn't letting people leave. So he said, "Oh no, of course they can leave," and he let a bunch of people go to Florida, which is how Scarface ended up in Florida.
Yeah.
So, but all too often the media are sympathetic to these foreign authoritarian governments, and that's where philosophy is at play. Now, you've worked on translating a lot of free market or libertarian literature into Chinese, or Mandarin is the proper name. Can you talk about some of the work you've done?
Yes, because I'm more focused on promoting the free market economic principles, the Austrian school economics. So I arrange translations of these books in China. Actually, they are all available in China. Mises, Hayek, Rothbard, and Adam Smith, and all of them. They're all available, but now the government forced to take them down. We call empty the shelves, so you can't really find them in the on the shelves in the bookstores. But it's still available because today is an internet world. So physical shops and physical books is not that crucial. So we're supporting those scholars, a few of them in different universities, teaching free market economics. I identify books, not by dead economists, but young and economists, and bring them to China to introduce to the people there and get them translated and published. And right now, this new book by Pellegrino from the Mises Institute about the simplified what is Austrian School of Economics. We're translating it, is almost done. We're going to publish it. Even though China is 200% controlling the publications, almost no foreign books are allowed to publish, even children's books, but we still have our ways to do it. For example, one book published by the Students for Liberty was by Tom Palmer's Peace, Love, and Liberty. After we translated, we just took the liberty out of the cover. We just say peace and love. And the people who censor these books, they're not very highly educated. They look at it and say, "Oh, it's about love," Yes, okay. So that one got published 2 years ago. So we do things in a way to get under the radar.
The organization that we're on right now, the network, is called the Ayn Rand Center UK. Are you familiar with Ayn Rand? Have you read or even translated? Yeah.
Yes. All her books are translated into Chinese. It's available, and I have a couple of friends. They used to own bookstores. You go there in the center of the mall, gigantic Ayn Rand posters in the window. That was about 7 years ago. It was like that.
That's
and
nice.
she's very well known in China, and because we relate, not like Western readers. They were amazed, surprised. For Chinese, especially for myself, we relate. For example, when my husband and I first met 35 years ago, and our first date, my husband gave me anthem, and because at that time I didn't really speak English well, so he gave me a small one. And because I was dating, so I said, okay, I'm going to read this. So it took me about less than a week. I finished it. And then the next time we met, he said, what do you think? I said, what do you think? That's my life. He said, what? I said, yeah, that's my life. Then the next one was We the Living. I identified with everybody. Our life was like that. Our house was taken away, and there end up with many families living in one, supposed to be one family, used to be our one family, then end up many families, and the kitchen was so crowded, and only one bathroom, you know. I knew all that. And I understood what they're thinking. One difference is I thought, oh, they're luckier than us because they at least they have ways they can escape. They can plan to go away. We couldn't. There's no way we could go anywhere. We couldn't even leave our workplace or not even next city. We couldn't. So for me, I said, oh, they're lucky. That's how it's our reaction. But the philosophy is there, the principles there. We all get it easily. But the sad thing is, most Chinese, they knew if they do anything and say no, will be in danger. So they chose not to. They chose to be numb and not to think. My father was a political prisoner, you know, just saying something they didn't like, nothing major. And there he went into prison. Many of my family members was imprisoned. My grandma's sister, 18 years, just because she used to work for American company and she spoke English. That's all the reason. 18 years in prison. And many commit suicide. Yeah. And so Ayn Rand in China is, yeah, available. People are reading, but unfortunately, not too many people are affected after they read. But I knew some. I knew people at the crypto era, people made Ayn Rand coin, crypto, and somebody was buying a piece of land, trying to make a God's God in China. Of course, those are beautiful initiative, but Chinese government won't allow anything near that to happen. So, but it's there.
Well, I would give you a little bit of a secret tip. Tell them, focus on ethics and epistemology, you know, put the politics aside for a minute, and maybe the Chinese overlords won't notice what's happening in the culture until it's too late.
Exactly.
Let's read some of the comments from our viewers. Marilyn, thank you. She sends $4. Regina says, hi, y'all. Kathleen with £5 says, crazy times out there. This channel must prevail. Looking forward to hearing some input from Li. And we did. Marilyn asks, do the Chinese people want to leave the country?
Oh, yes. The most popular word in China is RUN. And they use a Chinese character to also spell RUN to illustrate this word. And it's not the same definition, the Chinese character, but everybody understood what that is. Anybody who has ways to leave are leaving. And we are expecting a big migration movement, just like after June 4th, Tiananmen massacre. But Chinese government this time are cracking down after June 4th, because China wanted to join WTO that time. So they were, okay, you want to go, especially the leaders, they want to get rid of them. They took them out of prison and put them on the airplane and make them leave, because they don't want international pressure on these political prisoners. I know many of them. And recently I invited them to go to conferences with me. They are in prison, they're on the most wanted list, but Chinese government didn't do much harm to them compared to today's political prisoners. Now they're not worried about their reputation, so they're more brutal to these student leaders, opinion leaders. But people are leaving. Chinese government took their passport away. Most people who work for government, for example, university professors, all their passport has to be safe by their by the school or by their company. They're not allowed to have their passport at home. So now even they want to leave, they don't have a passport. Another thing is the passport, most of their children's passports have a shorter time, and they need to renew their passport. Like my friend, I said, why don't you just come? You have a US visa already. They said our daughter's passport expired, and they refuse to give us new passport. That's one way of controlling. Another one, there's a very famous influencer in China, and she got a ticket to go to Dubai to watch World Cup. And she was on the internet all over and bragging about she's leaving. And then she got to the airport. They said, oh, your passport is not valid anymore. She said, what do you mean not valid? And they said, no, your passport is not valid. So in front of her, they cut her passport in half. Mm. And of course, she's an influencer. She immediately filmed it. But of course, her video was edited. And most of the things she said was deleted, but she still posted her video. And now they're doing that. People are leaving. Everybody wants to leave. So they use whatever ways to stop you from leaving, even to a point they just cut your passport at the airport. Yeah, people, some people left. I love their stories. I have a lot of friends who left North Korea, and every time I met anyone, I ask them how, and I listen to their story. And Chinese too, when they left, I asked them their stories, because China brag about their fighting with the Japanese and nationalists in the late 1930s and 1940s, and by doing the underground movement and spy and all. So those were popular Chinese movies, because those movies then praised the Communist Party. But people grown up watching those movies, they learned the trick. They use the same trick now to get around the control and the Communist Party itself, and to leave their compound, to leave their apartment, to somehow get to the airport. And those are, in the future will be TV shows and movies, and very, very interesting, unbelievable.
I wish we would make TV shows about it today in America, right? We have the opportunity, but sadly, we're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Marilyn, send a thumbs up. Thank you for that. Ashley says, this is beyond horrifying. Kiana asks, are there any organizations we can donate to help?
Yes.
If you want, you
China, yeah, go ahead.
You can type it in the Zoom call and we'll post it as a comment or something like that. If you don't have it available, we could post it we'll post it as a comment on YouTube once we have that.
Okay.
And Bonnie says, share this show. Yeah, that's one way to promote. I mean, I'm learning in real time about a lot of this. Marilyn asks, journalist Oriana Fallaci excoriated the U.S. for pandering to tyrants. Are you familiar with Miss Fallaci? Okay. Well, thank you, Marilyn, for that reference. Kathleen asks, names of dissidents to promote on Twitter. So if you want to, Lee, if you could maybe type up some of the names in either on the Zoom call or email it to us whenever, we'll post it as a comment so people can show their solidarity on social media. Hamed Tiha sent over €2. Thank you for that. Not Another Guitar Channel from Australia says, Li Zhao is an inspiration. I'm glad she could be on the show. Now, how do you look at lockdowns elsewhere? Because of course, lockdowns were almost a worldwide phenomenon. With rare exceptions, lockdowns were everywhere. Do you see them all as vulgar expressions of power by governments, the same as China, or do you have a different view of lockdowns worldwide?
Yes and no. At the beginning, most people are panicked. So it started in China. So they just copied China model. That really empowered Xi Jinping. It was unfortunate, very sad. I was very angry. And because I lived through China and they use fear to control people. When you're living in fears, you give up your thinking and you give up your control of your lives. You let the government and so-called expert to tell you. And I just learned yesterday there's so huge difference between expert and wise person, people with wisdom. But there's one difference. In China was control the pandemic. The rest of the world, I don't say every country, I knew at least United States or England is try to manage the pandemic. The same lockdown is different perspective. So once people learned, even the government learned how to manage it, they let go of the total lockdown and those extreme measures. But they had it for a while. But China is control because they think they're God. They're better than God. They can eliminate some phenomenon. Just like when I was growing up, we were ordered to change the river to change the mountain because God didn't make the world perfect. Men have to do that. So now they're still use the words control. And the rest of the world is managing. And the rest of the world did not take the power from individual hands entirely to make decisions. And so a lot of people, including me, I refuse to do anything the government asks. I have never spent even a penny to buy a mask. I wear masks a few times when I have no other choices and they gave me. And I stopped watching all news. That's why I didn't know whatever on the news because the news is trying to put fear and brainwash me. So I block everything out. We still had that freedom. In China, you don't have that. You don't have any control of freedom. You cannot make decisions. You cannot not following.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference. Of course, the lockdown, short period of time or long period of time, they all hurt businesses, hurt people, and you can't deny that. But to me, I'm happy about many countries stopped it after they realized it's not right. And after people saying no. After I traveled, I still traveled. And I traveled to some countries have really terrible lockdown measures, like in Chile, in other countries. I realized United States, it's and Great Britain, and still the free how do you say the land of free. We have the deep tradition. The tradition is there, even though on surface we had the similar things like China and dictatorship, but the people will say no when they don't see it's right. And the people still know what can identify truth from lies. And we still have power, we still have freedom of choice, even though looks like we lost it, we didn't. So that's the really big difference, the tradition, especially in Europe. The tradition goes back to Magna Carta time. You know, it's there. So we need to protect that. We're losing it little by little, but we need to protect that. We need to identify that's our tradition.
And some would say there would be and some would say there would be no Magna Carta or Renaissance or Enlightenment or United States, but for Aristotle and the ancient Greeks. So philosophy is a big, big piece of the puzzle, maybe the most important one. So everyone, I say dictators they're not smart. They're not even really powerful. It's just that the subjects are not selfish enough. When people are truly wanting a good life, then dictatorships fall apart and run away like children. Richard says, thank you for getting the truth out. We need a full-scale documentary. Oh, a documentary, a dramatized hit TV show, a movie. I mean, there's such an opportunity to expose what's happening in China. I think history will judge. History will really not look kindly on us in the West and the sort of blind eye we turned.
I'm all for that. By the way, next Monday, a week from today, I will be in London and getting interviewed for a documentary about history of communism. And so if you guys want some documentary, I'm there. And also I knew a few people who are like me, live in London too. And I can introduce you guys to. And we are all individuals. We don't have a huge organization. And unfortunately, not everybody can work with each other, but we have a same goal to overthrow the Communist Party and the CCP. And so we're determined and we will do whatever. I think it's okay. We're fighting the same enemy. We pick a different weapon and we use different battlegrounds, but we're going to get there.
Very good. Absolutely. Okay, Mark, any last minute questions or thoughts before we wrap?
No, not at all. It was very interesting. Thank you so much for your time.
All right.
One more comment is since we're little, the Chinese government, the biggest, most powerful weapon is education. They control the curriculum, control everything, and selfishness is the dirtiest word. The Chinese communists plant in people's mind. For some reason, I just used to let that affect me. So I was every year's school report card, I was always labeled selfish. And I'm proud of that.
Wow. That's a compliment.
Nice.
Amazing. And I think that is the key. That is the secret. And it's not even a secret. It's out in the open. Everybody, the virtue of selfishness is all it takes. It's a philosophical battle at the end of the day. Coming up at 7 p.m. UK time, which is in a few minutes, it's the Briefly Objective premiere on the Daily Wire and Atlas Shrugged Part 2. Link in the chat. Then at 9 p.m. UK time today, it's Ask Harry Anything with Harry Binswanger. Let's get some Harry Binswanger translated into Mandarin. That's my personal request. Okay, thank you so much for being here, Li. If you could get us some of the names of the prisoners or any information, any links to any organizations you want us to promote, we can comment it. Also, thank you, Gail, for the support just now. Great to have you on. Hope we wish you a lot of luck and hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you, Mark. And thank you.